Hello, family. Hope this is finding everybody healthy and safe. I know this is getting to be longer than we anticipated, having to be separated from one another, but we're just going to keep on doing what we have to do until we get clearance to come back together again. Right before we parted ways over a month ago, we had done, we were in the middle of a Bible study on Wednesday nights, and we were covering the minor prophets. I don't know if you guys remember that. And what we did the last night that we met was we started the book of Habakkuk, which is one of the minor prophets toward the end of the Old Testament. And that word was just sort of left hanging there and hanging there and hanging there, and it's been bothering me ever since. And finally the Lord just released me and said, go ahead and use it. Go ahead and use it. So we're going to do a word tonight called why. Has anybody out there ever asked God why or wondered why? Well, if so, you're not alone. Habakkuk was a minor prophet, one of the prophets of God, and he had a complaint against God. And this is how it went. We'll start with Habakkuk chapter 1, verses 1 through 4. Verse 1, the oracle that Habakkuk the prophet received. How long, O Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? Or cry out to you, but you do not save? Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrong? Destruction and violence are before me. There is strife and conflict abounds. Therefore the law is paralyzed and justice never prevails. The wicked hem in the righteous so that justice is perverted. Habakkuk here is yelling at God. It's an indictment. It's a lamentation. God, you don't listen. God, you don't seem to hear. Have you not seen the news, Lord? Look at what these people are doing. It's out of control. It's a free-for-all down here. It's a rampage. Good people are suffering while evil people are winning and they're prospering. And you seem to sit there on your throne in heaven doing nothing, Lord. I don't know, God, if you're blind or you're deaf or both, or you're just sitting on your hands, but you're not doing a very good job up there in heaven, Lord. And this is what Habakkuk had to say to God, and that's not all. He goes on and he says, a matter of fact, God, if I did my job the way you're doing yours, I'd get fired. I've heard all the hype about you and who you are. God is good, God is love, God is omnipotent, God is omnipresent. I've heard it all, but I gotta say, I'm unimpressed thus far, God. You don't listen, you don't care, you don't do anything about evil and suffering. What's your problem, God? And that is only the first 4 verses of the book of Habakkuk. Now, has anyone but me and Habakkuk ever felt this way? Come on now. I know you probably don't say it out loud like he did, but I bet some of you have felt that way. Why? The question he's asking God is why. And I bet if we went through the ranks of the churches today, the number one question that people in the church, not just the people outside the church, but people in the church, if you could ask God any question and he had to answer you, I bet the number one question of all time since the beginning of time would be why. And God answers him. God let him run his mouth, and then he answered him in verse 5, and this is what he had to say. Look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed. For I am, is going to do something in your days that you would not believe even if you were told. Now I want you to know something. Habakkuk was not the only one feeling that way. He had a contemporary, another prophet that was operating around the same time. Maybe you've heard of him. His name was Jeremiah. He also wanted to know why as well, and this is what he had to say. Now, Jeremiah, he was born and raised in north of Jerusalem. He was called to be God's prophet to the southern kingdom of Judah. He had been set apart for his assignment from his mother's womb. He was called by God to speak to the people of God, and God said this, whatever I tell you to say, you say, and whatever I tell you to do, you do. And Jeremiah was doing just that, but the people of God didn't want to hear it. They were intent on doing things their own way. We're going to just go ahead and live the way we want to live. Okay, Jeremiah, we're going to do what we want, when we want, and God will just have to forgive us later. So these guys had an entitlement mentality. They were under the impression that because they were the children of God, they could do whatever they wanted and God would have to forgive them. And Jeremiah was calling them to account on this. He began to speak judgment against them. He said, you're God's chosen people, but you're acting like the rest of the world. And the people began to persecute Jeremiah. They scoffed at him. He was beaten. He was chained. He was thrown in prison. They did not care for the things that Jeremiah was saying. And Jeremiah was being persecuted for doing what God had told him to do. Now, before we keep going there's more to this, but before we get into all that, I want to ask you something, family. Have you ever found yourself doing what you're sure God has asked you to do? You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're committed to what He's told you, but now it seems as if God has gone silent. God seems to have left town. He's abandoned you in your circumstance, and now you're standing there alone in the midst of the temptation, in the midst of the persecution, wondering, where are you at, God? Oh, where did you go? Anybody but me and Habakkuk and Jeremiah ever feel that way? Now let's look at the rest of Jeremiah's complaint. Jeremiah 12:1. This is the beginning of his complaint. The second part of Jeremiah 12:1 says, why does the way of the wicked prosper? Why do the faithless live at ease? He's asking God, how come the wicked, messed up people live so good, God? Why? Why do the ungodly seem so blessed? We struggle in our finances while they live the good life. They get promoted while I get laid off. They get a new car while I'm calling around for a ride to church. Jeremiah was unhappy with God, and he was letting him know it. Just as his contemporary Habakkuk had done, Jeremiah goes on. He's not finished either. Jeremiah in 12:2 said this, you have planted them. He's talking about the evil, the ungodly people now. He said, you have planted them and they have taken root. They grow and they bear fruit. God, they're doing well and it's your fault. It's because of you. You could stop at any time you wanted to, but you keep on allowing them to be blessed. And Jeremiah is angry. I'm trying to do the right thing here. He says, I'm trying to do what you told me to do. I'm trying to live and honor you, but I don't see nothing coming from it. Why am I struggling while the ungodly are being blessed? Why? And then God answers Jeremiah, just as he answered Habakkuk. When he answered Habakkuk, he said, you wouldn't believe it if I told you. Now God answers Jeremiah. And this is what he has to say in Jeremiah 12:5. If you have raced with men on foot and they have worn you out, how can you compete with horses? If you stumble in safe country, how will you manage in the thickets by Jordan? He answers a question with a question. When Jeremiah asks why, God answers him with those questions. Let's break them down. What's God saying to Jeremiah here? Well, the first thing he's saying is, like, you've been in a foot race with mere men. On a nice flat track, and you're complaining about that. He goes, how do you intend to do the things that I have set aside for you to do? See, what Jeremiah didn't know is God had big plans for him. He was taking him to a place that he could not even imagine in his own mind. And Jeremiah was complaining about being persecuted by mere men. I want you to know something, church, that when the enemy sends in an attack, back in those days, warfare was done a little differently than we do it now. The first wave of the attack from the enemy was done by foot soldiers, mere men. It was a lot of them, but still just mere men. Men like yourself are equals. The next wave of the attack were soldiers on horseback. You ever heard of New Level, New Devil? Okay, something you can't defeat without God's help is what was coming next. Up until now, you've been battling the small stuff, Jeremiah. You've been running against men, foot soldiers, the first wave. But what I've got for you, what I'm preparing for you, what I'm anointing you to do, far surpasses foot soldier stuff. I'm preparing you, family, and I'm talking to you, family. I think this has a double meaning. It was one for Jeremiah at the time, but I believe he's speaking to his church, which is you guys. And I think this word is for you. He says, I'm preparing you, family, to run with horses. And if you can't run on an open, flat, level track, how will you manage to run in the thickets by the Jordan? How will you run through the jungle, family? He's preparing us to run with the horses. And I challenge you, family, no matter what you're going through right now, there are foot soldier issues. They are nothing. Do not let some foot soldier come in and destroy or steal or kill what God has ordained you to become since you were in your mother's womb. See, Jeremiah was called to this while he was still in his mother's womb, and I'm telling you, so were you, even before the foundations of the earth. Church, we are being prepared to run with horses. Every foot soldier you've ever encountered has been called, has been allowed to come against you in order to strengthen you. I had a very wise woman once tell me about the moth or the butterfly and the process that they go through when they're being transformed from from the worm in the cocoon to the beautiful winged animal that they, or insect that they will become when they come out of the cocoon. And that process takes a while, and you see them struggling as they break out of their cocoon, and you just want to help them. You just want to tear the thing open. You just want to get a scissor and slice it open and set them free. But if you did that, you would be doing them a disservice, because they would not have strength in their wings to fly. It is the breaking out of the cocoon, the work, the effort, the struggle that makes them strong enough to become what they're going to have to be at the next stage of their development. And the enemy has placed these foot soldiers in your path because he does not like the direction in which you are going. See, this is all good stuff. These struggles are only temporary, and they're all for our good. They strengthen us, and it's a signal that the enemy is giving it away. He's letting us know we're on the right path because he's resisting us. He doesn't like the direction in which we're going, so he tries to wear us down. He wants to cause you to quit by distraction, by disappointment, by discouragement, by despair. But they're all foot soldiers. For instance, people are talking about me. Foot soldier stuff. They disrespected me. Foot soldier stuff. Someone else got credit for the work I did. Foot soldier stuff. You're feeling completely misunderstood. Foot soldier stuff. They lied about you. Foot soldier stuff. The church don't have enough money to operate. Foot soldier stuff. They got more hits on YouTube and more likes on Facebook than I did. Foot soldier stuff. The one that I thought was the one left me, and now she's with another one. Foot soldier stuff. COVID-19, foot soldier stuff. Church, I want you to know something. The enemy has come to steal, kill, and destroy. We got a fivefold ministry. He got a threefold ministry. But Jesus Christ has come so that we might have life, and we might have it more abundantly. Christ has come so that we might run with the horses, family. I want to tell you about a woman who lived in the United States in the early 1900s. Her name was Hetty Green. She was dubbed America's greatest miser. She was the richest woman in the world at the time. She died in 1916, leaving an estate of over $200 million. That would equate in today's language to about $4.3 billion by our standards now. This woman was so miserly that she was known to have spent an entire night looking for a lost 2-cent stamp. She's known to have eaten cold oatmeal every morning for breakfast because she did not want to spend the money it took for fuel to heat it up. She wore old, worn-out clothing and would do so until it literally fell off her back. One time her son had a terrible leg injury, and she looked around. Rather than take him to a doctor, she looked around for a free clinic for several days, and inevitably he had to have that leg amputated because of the onset of infection. And finally, they say that she actually had a hand in her own demise and her own death, as she got so excited during an argument about the use of skim milk versus whole milk, not because it was more healthy for you, but because it was cheaper. And she gave herself an epileptic fit. She went into vapor lock, and she died on the spot during an argument over skim milk. And why do I tell you about Hetty Green? Well, I tell you that because this woman was so blessed with so much wealth and so much prosperity, but she lived in poverty like a pauper. And I'm afraid that there are some people in the church today doing that exactly same thing. That we have been so blessed. We have so much spiritual wealth, so much spiritual prosperity, so much spiritual strength, so much spiritual power. Let us not live as spiritual paupers. God has given us all we need, church, to run with the horses. The horses are coming, family. They're bigger than we are, they're stronger than we are, and on our own we cannot run with them. But fear not, because the one who has called us has given us all we need to do what he has called us to do. We are not going to run this thing on our own. He's given us kingdom power in these frail earthen vessels so that we can accomplish his will, family. His strength is made perfect in our weakness. So, as we continue to deal with our present circumstances and we're tempted to ask God why, may I remind you of the answer he gave Habakkuk back in Habakkuk 1:5. You wouldn't believe it if I were to tell you. Trust him, family, for he is good. God bless you guys. Love you. Talk to you soon.